I'm the Reverend Brianne Swan, and this is Sermons from the East End for Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. It is week 3 in our season of creation, and today we are discussing the flora and the fauna. We start now with a poem by Mary Oliver called When I Am Among the Trees. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world but walk slowly, and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. It's simple, they say. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light and to shine. So as I mentioned before, we are in week 3 of the season of creation. If you're just joining us, or if it helps to have a recap of where we've been so far, week 1 was Planet Earth Sunday. And we were invited to explore God as holy mystery, who is both holy and holy love. We reflected on the first part of Genesis 1, where God separates light from darkness, sea from land, and brings forth vegetation and creatures of all kinds. Last week, we completed Genesis 1 and moved into Genesis 2, encountering 2 different stories of God creating humanity, with calls to stewardship, relationship, and intimacy. And today, we focus on flora and fauna, plants and animals. There is something poetic about flora and fauna that is more musical than just plants and animals. It's got kind of a Sufjan Stevens vibe, but it also feels a little bit like Snow White in a Disney film. Snow White walking through the forest, singing and communing with sparrows, rabbits, and deer, with squirrels keeping her company as she cleans house. But Disney has a habit of sanitizing stories. And I'll admit, I struggled a bit with this week's sermon. In fact, I went to bed on Friday night, and I dreamed that when I woke up, it was already Sunday. Somehow, I had missed Saturday entirely, and I was standing at the pulpit asking the congregation to pray with me with no sermon prepared. I had nothing. I think this is the preacher's version of that stock dream where you show up to school naked. And in my dream, I had to wing it. And if you haven't picked up on this yet, I don't like winging it. As I started talking in the dream, wondering if I'd get an email from our ministry and personnel committee for being so irresponsible as to lose an entire Saturday, I looked up, and the balcony had turned into stone covered in vines. The ground was soft, fragrant moss, and we, all of us, were among the trees, their trunks like columns, their leaves forming a canopy. And in that moment, I didn't need to speak. We were among the trees, and the trees said all that needed to be said. We, they, it was enough. I was a little disappointed on Sunday that this didn't happen. But at least we have these words, Mary Oliver's words. And I think we're still in Genesis, even if we're hearing the scripture through Oliver's voice. She says, I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, stay a while. The light flows from their branches. So much of Oliver's poetry draws on images from nature to illustrate aspects of the human condition. And that resonates with me. It is often easier to see parts of myself in a tree than in the people around me, because trees don't put up facades, they don't deceive. There are fewer layers to wade through to get to the essence of a tree than there are to get to the essence of who I am or who you are. I know this even when I am trying to access myself. I spend a lot of time in existential angst wondering, who the hell am I? Trees are incredible. Did you know that trees communicate with one another? They're connected through an underground network of fungi, almost like the neural pathways in our brains. Ecologist Suzanne Simard observed a Douglas fir that had been attacked by insects, seemingly sending chemical signals to a nearby ponderosa pine. In response, the pine produced defense enzymes to guard against the insect threat. Simard also found that trees do more than just warn each other of danger. They share nutrients when needed, helping to maintain the overall health of the forest. Many trees are connected through a central older tree that she calls a mother or a hub tree. These mother trees form connections with younger ones, she explains. By linking up with trees of various ages, they support the growth of new seedlings. The seedlings plug into the network of older trees, benefiting from their resources. At key times, the mother trees pass on carbon, nutrients, and water, providing essential support that helps the seedlings survive. What Simard has uncovered about trees is remarkable. Yet it feels deeply familiar. Trees connected by an underground network of fungi remind me of the way God works in creation. The mother trees supporting younger ones are an image of God as Mother Earth, sustaining, nurturing, and providing for us. These trees share nutrients and offer protection, and in their quiet way reflect the love and care that God shows us. In this divine ecosystem, God is always whispering, I'll do anything for you. We hear this not only in the natural world, but in the rhythms of life itself. Creation constantly reminds us, I'll do anything for you. I'll grow for you. I'll die for you. I'll come back for you. Through creation, God sustains us at every turn. Like the mother trees, life flourishes because of God's quiet, constant care. But what happens when we fail to recognize this sacred interconnectedness? What happens when we interrupt this divine process, when we lose sight of our own place within the ecosystem? As I mentioned, Who the hell am I? Is a question I ask myself often. There are many words translated as hell in our English Bibles, and one of them refers to Gehenna, a valley outside of Jerusalem where at one time children were sacrificed. This desecrated land was thought to be a burning trash heap constantly smoking and aflame. And I'd heard this story repeated as fact until I researched it for this sermon and found there's no real actual evidence of Gehenna being a literal dumpster fire. And that was super frustrating because it ruined my metaphor. But there are plenty of both literal and metaphorical dumpster fires in the world today, so I'm going to run with it. Because landfills, they disrupt the natural rhythm of life. When you eat a banana, the peel is essentially dead, and then when you compost it, the microbes and the worms break it down, turning death into new life. But in a landfill, Gehenna, this process stops. And instead of death leading to new life, it festers. Death stays dead. This is what hell is. This is what separation from God feels like. Death without renewal, decay without hope. It interrupts the beautiful cycle we hear in the Bible, and we've talked about it many, many times. We are so gloriously alive. We are so weepingly lost. And yet an ancient love rolls on, refuses not to roll on. And then once again, we are so gloriously alive. Hell is being stuck in the loss and the weeping. And there are so many places on this planet due to human actions where life is stuck in this weeping, with the soil, God's very body, crying out for reconciliation. In his song that we will hear in a few minutes, Sufjan Stevens asks, "Even if I come back, even if I die, is there some idea to replace my life?" It's a haunting question. What replaces life after death? In the natural world, we see it clearly. Life replaces life. When one tree dies, it gives way to new growth. When one season ends, another begins. Creation cycles are built on this truth. Simard's work reminds us that mother trees give what they have to support younger trees, not for reward or self-preservation, but because that's how life flourishes. God invites us to participate in this sacred cycle, where our care for creation is both an expression of God's love and love for God. Our relationship with the earth is spiritual. The trees, the animals, the land, they are all expressions of God's ongoing work and existence. As we hear in Genesis, we have a responsibility to care for them, to be stewards of the world God has entrusted to us. This isn't just about some sort of academic understanding of environmentalism. It's about recognizing that our well-being is deeply intertwined with the well-being of all creation. If salvation is a communal endeavor, anywhere that death festers, so do we. God calls us to live not just for ourselves, but for the greater good of all creation. Like the trees, we are called to give of ourselves, to share what we have so that life and we may continue to flourish. This is what God desires for us. As Oliver writes, "It's simple," they say. And you too have come into this world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. As we continue in this season of creation, my hope is that we recommit ourselves to this sacred calling, to care for the earth, to nurture life, and to relish our place in it all as loving participants in God's ongoing creation. And perhaps, in the midst of it all, we will hear God whispering through the leaves, "I did everything for you." Amen.
1, 2, 3, 4.
East End United Regional Ministry is committed to supporting our neighbors throughout the East End of Toronto. We run a weekly food bank market out of our Glen Roads campus on Gerrard Street, as well as out of the cold from our Eastminster campus on Danforth Avenue. We actively support refugees and asylum seekers, and are public, intentional, and explicit of our affirmation and advocacy for two-spirited and LGBTQIA+ peoples. We gather for worship on-site and online Sunday mornings at our Eastminster campus and Thursday evenings at our Glen Roads campus. We are a community working to figure out how to embody the words of Cornel West, who said, "Justice is what love looks like in public." We don't always get it right, but we are committed to working for progress even as we acknowledge that we are a work in progress. If any of this sounds interesting, we would love to meet you. Feel free to send me, Reverend Brianne, an email, bswan, BSWAN, at eastendunited.ca. I would love to connect over coffee, either in person or online. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. September has 5 Sundays, which means next week East End United Regional Ministry will be celebrating Music Sunday. This means we will be taking a week off. So until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you soon. East End United Regional Ministry is an affirming community of faith within the United Church of Canada. You can learn more about our community, including our many outreach programs, by going to www.eastendunited.ca.